in the US. She is director of the Global Online Teacher Education Center. She is an award-winning author and series editor for National Geographic Learning. Her titles include Teaching Young Learners English, Our World, and Impact. Joan is also blogs editor for IATEFL YLTSIG. During Joan's plenary, we recommend watching in speaker view. And if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box. Over to you, Joan. Please share your screen.
Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be here with you today. And I'm going to share my screen now. And if you could let me know if you can see my slides well, that would be very helpful. Okay, can you hear and see me and my slides? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So today I'm thrilled to talk about a topic that I think is very important. And the title is Where Media Literacy Education Meets English Language Teaching. And so during this presentation, I am hoping that we can encourage more media literacy education with tweens and teens that we work with. And I'm going to introduce you to some frameworks and practical strategies for successful media literacy instruction in our English language classrooms. So, the goal is that this presentation will advance our thinking about media literacy education in ELT with ideas and examples from our students' daily lives. So, as you know, if you're like me anyway, it's difficult to keep up with the fast pace of technological change. And in fact, if you are like me and many parents, maybe you feel like your kids, your teens know a lot more about technology than we do. And oftentimes they do. And so if you're teaching tweens or teens, or you have tweens and teens in your house, you may feel like they're always on to the next thing and that they're pretty tech savvy, but don't worry. When we're talking about media literacy education, we have important roles to play because we have something that most of our young people haven't fully developed yet, and that's a mature and informed understanding of the world. And our students may use technology easily and access more new media than maybe some of us, but they don't necessarily have that life experience, the knowledge, and the critical perspectives that we have. So it's our job as 21st century educators to show our students how to use technology and media in creative, beneficial, safe, and ethical ways. So first, let's start with a general definition of media literacy, which is the ability to understand, critique, and create media messages. Media messages are communicated via traditional media, like print newspapers and TV shows, and digital or new media, like podcasts, video platforms, video games, all of these. And we need to expand our thinking of what literacy is. So a traditional understanding of literacy involves being able to read and write letters, words, paragraphs, essays, other types of writing, that text that you see here on the screen. But reading materials would normally come from, say, local or national sources like libraries, newspapers, publishers, governmental agencies. But because of technological advancements and improvements in availability, people today have access to media from all over the world and from a wide variety of sources. So much of the digital media people use these days include not only words and paragraphs, what we call text, but also images, video, audio, animation, you name it. So we have to remember, though, right, that we live in a multimodal world. And we actually should be bringing the world, all of it, to the classroom as we teach students how to communicate in English. So multimodal, you probably know, but I'll define it anyway. It literally means multiple modes. And as Cress noted, literacy includes constructing meaning with images, sound, video, color, or some combination of all of these. So in the real world, we do not just communicate using words and text. Media that include a combination of these elements are also known as multimodal ensembles. So you're familiar with all of these types of communications, right? Memes are multimodal ensembles, right? Combining image and text. Here's, of course, one of the "Hey girl" memes. Online teaching is hard, but you got this. And I like this one. Oh no, I'm not perfect. Okay, so we find all kinds of creative ways to use memes as multimodal ensembles. Of course, another example of a multimodal ensemble is a web page that includes text, photos, video, or even a television program like the one you see here that uses animation, audio, and text. So when our students engage with multimodal ensembles like these, they need to have the media literacy skills to understand and critique the embedded messages, those media messages. So with these skills, our students will be able to navigate today's media-saturated world with confidence and skill. So that's what our goal is. So the next question is, why is it so important for today's English educators to help their students develop media literacy? Any ideas? Perhaps in the chat box. Why is it so important for us as English language educators to help our students develop media literacy? What do you think? Type in the idea. Okay, because students communicate through these. Sure, because media is everything nowadays. We chat online a lot. It's the need of the hour. I like that, Melissa Robinson, the need of the hour. 21st century skill. Maria Fernandez, media offers real life context. Absolutely. Thank you so much for these ideas. Okay, you can keep typing in ideas to share with one another. I will move on to the next point, which is just to emphasize the importance of this in teaching a language. James Paul G pointed out multimodality is the rage today and the new thing, but it seems new only because we linguists have done such a poor job analyzing language. We treat language as words and grammar, but language has never been unimodal. So in fact, we as humans are extremely visual. Even from prehistoric times, our ancestors were using images to depict our world and communicate well with others. So, here you see the prehistoric paintings in Lascaux Cave in France from over 17,000 years ago, just to show the point that it isn't all just about text in terms of language. And we've been using things like images to communicate with one another. And so we need to connect to real communication that is multimodal. So if you think about it, we've always used more than just text to communicate with each other. And since our world is image and media driven, our teaching should be image and media driven. And now in the digital age and with new technologies, multimodality has expanded our view of literacy, and we have to consider all aspects of media, digital and information literacy, all of which are intertwined with one another. And with this increased use of authentic multimodal text with photos, illustrations, information graphics, and videos in instruction, media literacy should be an integral part of English language teaching and learning. And we know English is a global language. It's the most widely used language on the internet, and it's the dominant language of science and technology. So students from all over the globe come across English in digital spaces daily, and they may even be engaging with their international peers in English through these online spaces. And your students will need to use both English language skills and their media literacy skills if they want to participate and communicate effectively. So as your students become adults and then they enter into the workforce, they will likely need to go online and use technology tools for gathering information, for content creation and collaboration with peers. So this is the reason why we should be considering teaching media literacy education with our language education, specifically English. And people who have a combination of English language and media literacy skills will be better prepared to use 21st century technology for the benefit of themselves and others. So just to make sure we're on the same page, want to make sure that you are seeing media in its full scope. Let's look at the different types of media that people engage with in their daily lives. And so you can see here, media sources, right? These are more traditional media, like print media, right? Billboards. And you can see here that these are media that we have been using, right? And so even in the 20th century, we talk a lot about 21st century skills, but even in the 20th century, educators recognized the need to help students read or understand these different types of texts. And in the past, we might have considered texts to be only printed media like books and articles. And in the field of media literacy education, we often use a broader definition of text, which is any media product that communicates meaning, including advertisements, films, TV programs, songs, newspapers, websites, photographs, comics, and more. So, you know, in the 21st century, we've become more concerned about the media messages that young people receive when they engage with media texts. So we have to consider how we can build those skills to approach these types of media. So again, these are traditional types of media, and many types of traditional media are now being used in digital formats too, such as ebooks and streaming of TV programs and movies, right? News apps, websites, and more. So a lot has been digitized. And here we can see a list of digital or new media. And these days, many of us use digital media quite a bit in everyday lives. And our students may have lived all their lives surrounded by new media, such as the internet and streaming services, social media, and online video gaming. So it may not be new to them, just new media to us. However, we can remember when these technologies were first introduced and first started to be popular, and we need to start to consider how to integrate it into our English language instruction. So with that, I want to talk about integrating media literacy education in ELT. And I'm going to introduce 4 steps towards that. And the first one is to build awareness of media with your students. And so the first example I have for you is called a media log assignment. Of course, I'm going to blow it up so you can see what's in the writing. Okay, but this media log assignment is supposed to be within a 48-hour period. And so what you're going to do is try to get your students to become more aware of the media that they use. And also this helps you to become aware of the media they use so that you can integrate that into your English language teaching. By the way, try this yourself. It's pretty fascinating when you take 48 hours and you keep a detailed log of all the media you encounter. And this includes media you consume and media you produce. And you use the information to fill in the table, which I'll show you a little bit bigger. Okay, and so what you're going to do, of course, and here you can see a little bit bigger, is that you're going to take note of where you find, see, look at, read, scroll, browse, search, hear, listen to, etc. So you're giving them, your students, the vocabulary for how you consume or even produce media. Okay, so you can see here, you take note of this, giving them the language. Okay, and then you also, in the table, as I'll show you, you're going to record where is the media. Okay, so is it on your phone, on your computer, on the internet, on a website, in an app? Okay, so you start to get the idea. So we're using these prepositional phrases also to communicate where is this media that you are using. And then also, what kinds of media do you consume and produce? Okay, and again, you're helping them with some of the vocabulary, photos, drawings, songs, radio programs, podcasts, videos. Okay, and then in the end, don't forget that flyers, brochures, posters, billboards, and signs are also forms of media, reminding them also of some of those traditional forms. So it's not just about the new media, it's all media. Okay, so let me show you what the form looks like bigger. And so here you can see the media log where they would put the date, time of day, morning, afternoon, evening, total time, then the media device, and then some of the details. So notice you're going to list types of media and where you encountered it, and then also details within the past tense. Okay, so here's an example for you so you can see. Great language practice. So you can see the first line, right, time of day, morning, 25 minutes, Facebook on my phone, and then the details in the past tense. Scrolled through feed, read friends' posts, okay, wrote comments on people's posts. Okay, and then in the next line, you can see 10 minutes, WhatsApp on my phone, read a friend's message, responded with messages and internet link. Okay, so the idea is great practice for English. You're practicing specific forms. You're also getting your students to start to build their awareness of media they consume, media they produce. When they share this with you, you get a better idea of the media that they are consuming and producing, which helps you integrate it into your classroom. And then you can get on the same page, right, with media use, as well as giving them practice with the language that they will use to start to communicate about the media in their lives. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. So that's one example of trying to build awareness of it, and also you building awareness more about your students and the media that they use. Okay, now the next step is then to build skills to analyze media. And so I love this quote from Ernest Boyer, focusing on critical literacy. It is no longer enough to simply read and write. Students must also become literate in the understanding of visual images. Our children must learn how to spot a stereotype, isolate a social cliche, and distinguish facts from propaganda, analysis from banter, and important news from coverage. Obviously, this is linked closely with the concept of information literacy and is a must with media literacy education. I want to emphasize how important this is with media in our everyday lives. Even if we think we have come a long way with representation in media, I want to point out that we have not necessarily come that far. So we have to build our students' skills for doing this, spotting those stereotypes and social cliches. So to make my point, let me show you an image from an old book for children. I have shown this in other presentations, but it really makes the point well. And then I'm going to give you an example and a framework to use. So let's look at this old book for children. By the way, so it's called I'm Glad I'm a Boy, I'm Glad I'm a Girl. It's written by Whitney Darrow Jr. in 1970. And in doing some research about this book, I've come to learn that it's a satirical book showing images that some of us might consider incredibly biased and out of date. So let's see some of the pages. Okay, so in here, obviously, very gender biased. Boys are strong, girls are graceful. Boys are doctors, girls are nurses. Boys fix things, girls need things fixed. Whoa. Boys are presidents, girls are first ladies. Okay, so obviously, these are extreme stereotypes, and this might seem completely outrageous. I mean, how do you see these images? And I see some people say, I'm so happy this has changed. Well, has it really changed that much? How far have we really come? So the reason why I've pointed this out is that it seems outrageous to us, but today we can see advertisements like this one. And I'm giving you a screenshot of this ad for baby formula. And this is a commercial still playing that shows different babies and who they will grow up to be. And so here, this is just a screenshot of the commercial here. You can see a little girl growing up to be a ballerina. This is what the commercial's showing us. How different is this from the image from that old book? And in that same commercial, here's a screenshot showing that the little baby boy is going to grow up to become some kind of a mathematician or maybe engineer. So clearly, we haven't changed very much in our representation in the media. And so we have to help our students spot these cliches and stereotypes so that it doesn't harm them in terms of how they're building their understanding of themselves. So let me show you how we might be able to help prepare them. And I want to introduce you to a framework from NAMLE. NAMLE is the National Association for Media Literacy Education. NAMLE is a professional association in the US for educators, academics, activists, and students with a passion for understanding how the media we use and create affect our lives and the lives of others in our communities and in the world. So this is from the NAMLE website. And the NAMLE vision, again, from their website, is to help individuals of all ages develop the habits of inquiry and skills of expression that they need to be critical thinkers, effective communicators, and active citizens in today's world. And so this grid, which again, I will blow up so you can see it better. This grid has been adapted by Rogo and Scheib from NAMLE's core principles for media literacy education. So I'll blow up each section in a moment, but I just wanted to introduce you to what this grid is about and also to NAMLE. So I have the website there, namle.net. And there's all kinds of useful resources for you to become more familiar with media literacy education. So in the NAMLE framework, and in using this grid, okay, what it's trying to show is that media literate people routinely ask questions in every category. That is the middle column, the category of authorship, purpose, economics, effects, etc. Okay, so when you are examining media, okay, and I'm going to give you an example, which would be for your teens or tweens learning English. So sometimes a category is not going to apply to a particular message, but in general, sophisticated close reading of media requires exploring the full range of issues covered by the 10 categories. Okay, so I'll show them to you little by little. And so what I'm suggesting is that you should adapt them or add them to your instruction to help your students develop their media literacy. And we want to encourage students to recognize that many of these questions will have more than one answer, right? So it's not like there's just one answer to everything, and it helps them to build their critical thinking and critical literacy skills. And this, hopefully, if you use this like routines, is going to help them develop the habit of giving evidence-based answers. And nearly every question should be followed up with a probe for evidence. So if they answer question, the follow-up question would be, well, how do you know? Why? What makes you say that? And the ultimate goal is for students to learn to ask these questions for themselves. So what you will do is try to promote their ability to ask these questions whenever they approach any piece of media. Okay, so you see here how important there's questions about authors and audiences, right? So authorship, who made this? Okay, that's a very first deep question for any media out there. Who made this, right? Purposes, why was this made? What does this want me to do? Who is the target audience? Who are they talking to, or who is this for? Economics, who paid for this? Where does the money come from? That can tell you a lot about even the purpose of it when you know who's paying for it. And the effects, right? Who might benefit from this message? Who might be harmed by it? Is this message good for me or people like me? What does the storyteller want me to remember? And then responses. What actions might I take in response to this message? How might I participate productively? How does this make me feel? And how do my emotions influence my interpretation of this? Okay, let's keep going. What about the messages and meanings? So in the content, what does this want me to think or think about? What would someone learn from this? What does this tell me about whatever the topic is in the message, like baby formula or how babies grow? What ideas, values, information, points of view are overt, implied? What's left out that might be important to know? Great critical thinking question. And then techniques. What techniques does the piece of media use? How do the techniques communicate the message? And then interpretations. How might different people understand this message differently? What is my interpretation? And what do I learn about myself or from my reaction or interpretation? See how deep this goes? And last is about representations and reality. So about context, when was this made, where or how was it shared with the public? And then credibility. Is this fact, opinion, or something else? How credible is this? What are the sources? And can I trust this source? Okay, so there's a lot in this framework. And as you can see, you as an educator understanding this framework can be useful for you to help your students build media literacy. But as you can imagine, for English language educators of tweens and teens at different levels of English language proficiency, as well as different levels of awareness of media literacy, we should use this as a framework to create activities that are at our students' level. Okay, so let me give you an example. All right, so let's stick to this topic of advertisements. So one great activity, which you can put in your media literacy toolbox, focuses on analyzing media messages, okay, in an advertisement. And so I will show you more about this handout. Okay, I'll make it larger. And you'll see that, in this handout, I'm using questions adapted from the NAMLE framework. And in this activity, students are going to be asked to analyze one media product. Okay, so if you have resources in your classroom for students to search the internet, you can ask them to choose a media product on their own, or you can find a few samples of media for your students to choose from. And for this example with you today, I'm going to use an ad that my team and I, George Mason University, created to demonstrate the activity. And by the way, I wanted to mention that these activities created and some of the examples I'm showing you, you can see down in the credit. This is coming from George Mason University, where I'm from. And my colleagues and I developed an English for Media Literacy for Educators MOOC. And so these are products of my work at George Mason University. Just wanted to mention that, and this is where these activities come from. Okay. So let's take a look here. So first, in the handout, you would see first you talk about what media you chose to analyze. So I chose to analyze a print ad. And then the first bit is I would tell my students to look at this ad just for 15 seconds or 20 seconds. And then turn it over and write down your initial thoughts about it. Okay, so how about you? Take a look at the ad, this Power Pink cleaning spray ad, and put in the chat box just some ideas that come to your mind about this advertisement. Okay, thank you, Sarka. You said this one's biased. Why not a boy? Pictures of women and girls cleaning. Thank you, Melissa. Nihad, heavily targeted at females, gender stereotypes. Okay, pink. Sonia, pink associated to girls. Beverly, Power Pink, not used by boys. Women are meant to clean. Thank you, Silva. Rana, hello, how are you? Biased. Rosenthal effect. Okay, so you guys are picking up on a lot. I wonder about your students, about how much your students would pick up on, okay? But in any case, maybe the initial thoughts might be, okay, this ad is about cleaning and it has colorful images of people cleaning. All right, and then you want to ask the questions. And here I'll show you the next part of the handout. I'll make it bigger. And then you'll go through these 9 key questions. And you'll notice that these questions were selected based on NAMLY's framework, right? But I've simplified it and I've tried to pull out questions that I think would be useful for teenagers and also at students level. Okay, and so then you can ask students about who made this ad. Okay, and they might see down below, this ad was made by Chemical Company. Why was this ad made? Okay, the answer might be this ad was made to sell a cleaning product. They wanted to show the power of their cleaning spray. All right, and what creative techniques were used in this ad? So what about for you? Do you see any creative techniques? What techniques did the people who created the ad use? Okay, so you might think, okay, they tried to create a snappy name like Power Pink and then use bright pink color. And the description is presented in a speech bubble or something a woman in the ad thinks or says, right? Power Pink cleaning spray is extra strong and easy to use. I can use it on surfaces throughout the house. I only wish my mother had told me about it sooner. Wow. Okay. Yes, I love all of the things that you are putting in the chat box. Yes, fun for everyone. It makes cleaning fun for everyone. Okay. We created this, by the way, as an example. Maybe we went overboard, but you know what? A lot of students won't pick up on all of these things that you're picking up on. All right, so then we ask, what are the obvious messages in this ad? So maybe the obvious message might be that Power Pink is a good cleaning product that can clean any surfaces in the house. And what do I think or feel about this ad? You might think, oh, this product is easy to use and it's fun and it can help clean your house. What might other people think or feel about the ad? Okay, so some of you are picking up on this, like what kinds of people are in the ad? 2 women and a girl. And what kind of people are missing from this ad? There are no men or boys. Okay, and maybe if you're like me, I might think, well, I also don't see any people who look like me, right? Okay, so what are the indirect messages in this ad? Okay, we've gone through the obvious, but you tell me, what are the indirect messages that somebody might get from this ad that is not even intended from the person who created it, but I might be getting this message? Right, thank you. That cleaning's not for boys. Yes, and women should do the cleaning. All right, perfect. So this one's pretty easy for you guys, but I think this one is an important example. It might be simplified to prepare your students for utilizing these 9 key questions when they use an ad, like a real authentic ad that they find. Okay, so this is you trying to teach them how to pick up the obvious messages, but pick up the indirect messages. Look at who's in the ad, who's missing from the ad. Okay, all right, so that's the point of the exercise. And the last part of the handout is then a reflection on it. And so what you want to do is have students review their initial thoughts that they had written down in the beginning, and then write about how those initial thoughts may have changed after doing the analysis using those key questions. Okay, so the idea, right? Step 2, build skills to analyze media. What you want to do is try to build a media Q&A routine so that if you're bringing in any kind of media into your English language teaching, or maybe even in your textbook that you use, they have presented different types of media. You want to have students go through this routine. So here we've simplified 9 key questions coming from the NAMLE framework, but you can use this as a routine for a while and have students ask and answer questions about media using it. Now, this is easy to fill in. You can also then, if you're going to promote a conversation about a piece of media, you can also post a Q&A anchor chart even with the responses. So if the question is, who made the ad? You might answer, this print ad was made by blank. Okay, why was it made? This print ad was made because blank. And you see here, we're even practicing, using the passive voice in the past tense. So having a grammar focus, having them practice, but also building media literacy skills. Okay, so number 3, build skills to create media. Now, students need to also read and write media messages. And so we want to encourage that next step. And let me go right here. Okay, so you might have a lesson about hobbies and interests. And by the end of the lesson, students will be able to talk about their hobbies and interests, describe and explain a hobby, and find friends who like the same hobby. Okay, so maybe with this unit, then you're going to have a project to start and promote a club. Right? So students can get together, decide on a hobby that they share, and then create something to promote a club. And when they create their own media, because maybe they want to make a flyer, maybe they want to make a little ad, maybe they want to post a little video, right, on the school website to encourage students to join their club. The idea is you're going to now give them tools to create their own media. And so the key questions now are posed in the opposite way. Why am I making this ad? What techniques am I using? What are the obvious messages? What do I want people to think or feel about this product or club? All right, so let me give an example here that students used those questions for creating media and then created this flyer. And what do you think about this flyer? Well, it's a multimodal ensemble. It uses text features, photos, right? They use the layout to make it look attractive for students to join their club. They included pictures of themselves. And after students completed these projects, then the teacher, exchanged the products with other groups, and then they analyzed them based on the 9 key questions. Okay, so now they're getting a chance to use the media Q&A routine with each other's products. Now, let's think about it for a second. Do you think that maybe there might be something missing from this? Or perhaps the analysis part might have brought up some new ideas. So in fact, right, some students may have noticed that, maybe there's some people who are missing. And a student, Lenore, was thinking to herself, girls are missing from this flyer. Can't I join the club? Okay, so doing that Q&A routine can actually give feedback to the students who created the flyer and recognizing that, well, there are no girls in the photos and there's not much racial or ethnic diversity shown in the flyer. And this particular school has a diverse student body. So the indirect message is that girls or people of color, other racial or ethnic backgrounds, are not good at science or technology. Maybe that's the message they're getting, or are not welcome in the club. So after receiving this feedback, then the boys who created the flyer realized they're sending an unintentional message based on the photos they chose for their flyer, because without thinking about it, they just put photos of last year's club members who happened to all be boys, but a bit problematic, right, in terms of inclusion. So they changed it. The boys decided to change the design of their flyer to include photos of famous scientists, both female and male. So are you the next Einstein or Mae Jemison? Join the Weston School Science and Technology Club. So what do you think about this solution? Now, this activity took a unit on hobbies, which is a typical topic in English language classes and textbooks, and extended it into a media analysis lesson that practiced the language of hobbies while encouraging both media production and consumption. And students could connect the lessons on hobbies to their lives and engage in authentic communication in English. And more importantly, this media literacy extension activity touched on deeper social issues of inclusion and how we represent ourselves and others through media. So this is just one example of adding media to, say, your existing curriculum. So I'm hoping this will inspire you to take one of your lessons and be creative and find ways to extend your lessons so your students can use English to strengthen their media literacy skills. So in my last tip, which is very short, is just to encourage you to integrate media literacy into your English language instruction. So create media literacy lessons. You can do it in different ways. One, first thing, simple, analyze your textbook and your instructional materials using these key questions. Have your students any videos that go with the book series you're using, or any images in your textbook. Maybe your textbook has samples of advertisements to teach media literacy. We'll take a look at those, have your students do an analysis of it. Take a look at all the images in your textbook, do an analysis of those. You can add media literacy extension activities to an existing lesson, like the one I just showed. You have a lesson on hobbies and interests. Add this project that will help them to deepen their understanding of media literacy through media production and consumption. Or you can develop a whole lesson or unit about media literacy as content for your English language class. If you do the 48-hour media log with your students, you will get to learn a lot about the media your students are consuming and producing. And that can give you a lot of good ideas for developing a whole lesson or unit about media literacy that's directly connected to what your students are using. Okay, I do want to give you one little tip though, which is that when you're developing these media literacy education lessons in English language teaching, great idea to take a tip from CLIL, Coyle, Hood, and Marsh, to find 3 types of language that can help us understand our students' needs in a CLIL environment. So if you are developing a whole lesson or unit on media literacy, you might want to consider those aspects of the language of learning, the language for learning, and the language through learning. And I just wanted to show you, you can create like a table like this, right? The language of learning is that subject-specific language, right? So maybe in your lesson, you are actually learning how to create media messages using a Q&A routine. So the language focus are like those 9 key questions. Then your language for learning, that's subject compatible language, right? You want your students to work in groups to create a media product. Well, then you might need to prepare them for those expressions for sharing ideas like I think, I believe, I like your idea, but why do you think that? And also that language through learning, which is the language that emerges from language from those specific contexts. So that might be unpredictable contexts, right? So maybe your students want to advertise their science and technology club, or maybe they want to create an ad for a specific vitamin product. Well, then that's going to contain language specific to that topic or that ad or that club that they chose. So when you are preparing specific media literacy lessons, you might also want to prepare for this language. By the way, if you remember in the 48-hour media log, you could see that there was preparation for vocabulary, preparation for the grammar focus in engaging students in this type of lesson. So I hope that was helpful for you. I had these 4 steps for integrating media literacy education into ELT. So 1, first, build awareness of media for yourself and for students. Build skills to analyze media using NAMLY's frameworks. Then build skills to create media, also using NAMLY's frameworks, and encouraging students to communicate and produce media and analyze media through consumption, preparing them for it. And the last one is to create media literacy lessons, preparing yourself for all the language that you need to help prepare your students. But please be committed to integrating media literacy education into your English language classes, because if we are going to integrate the real world and real authentic communication into our classrooms, we must include multimodal communication and the media that our students are really encountering in their real lives. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope that it was helpful. Thanks, everyone. And let me see if there are any questions specific to the presentation. Yes, so I do see a question in Q&A. Nihad Lajal says, how can we integrate such activities in the curriculum for schools that follow specific programs? So what I'd like to say is you could first start with media analysis of images, videos, anything that's in your curriculum. I think is fair game for doing an analysis to build that critical media literacy skills. And I think the example of adding a project, an authentic project that incorporates media literacy into your curriculum is absolutely possible. Maybe you don't have time to do it with every lesson, but like with a lesson in hobbies, why not have them create something to encourage people to join a club? Or let's say you are doing an analysis of, it could be like an article in the newspaper. why not take a look at an article in the newspaper? You are teaching about text literacy by teaching them how to read the language in the newspaper, but you can also then take a look at the images and the captions and the way that the article is being presented in terms of the information. So there's so many ways that you can integrate media literacy education. You just have to be a little bit creative, and you might have to change your point of view of even what media is, recognizing that it does include those traditional forms as well as new media. All will help students build that critical media literacy.
Well, thank you so much for that, Joan, and for the first Strand 1 plenary of this conference. I think that was so useful in terms of having us think differently about the English language curriculum for lower secondary and upper secondary, and expanding the teacher's role through media literacy. I really like the multimodal ensembles and also all those various frameworks, which I think are very useful for teachers then, like you were saying, to then create their own activities, and starting with their own course book and their own visual images. And I really like the authentic ads, and great to see a session for that secondary age range as well. So thank you so much for kicking off our Strand 1. That was really interesting, and the comments are so positive in the chat. Thanks very much, Joan.